Chapter 1543. The God of the Nest. Dark clouds spread in the sky above the immortal mountain, quickly covering the entire Edo Castle. Standing high in the sky was a figure hidden in a black robe, and only a flash of lightning could make people see his figure. From the moment he appeared, Zhang Yi realized that this guy's strength was definitely far beyond the extremely evil boy. The strong sense of oppression made even Zhang Yi feel the crisis. It was like a sharp dagger, close to the skin. Is it coming after all? Zhang Yi had long realized that there must be some powerful force in the dark. Otherwise, with the situation in Neon, it would be impossible to give birth to an alien of the level of the extremely evil boy. Now that the extremely evil boy has been killed by Zhang Yi, the existence in the dark can no longer hide and is ready to take action. The Black Shadow, God's Nest Sun God, in the sky looked down at his feet. His eyes fell on Zhang Yi alone, and the cold killing intent was released from his eyes without any concealment. The next moment, he raised the scepter in his hand high, and then hit it hard in the air. Buzz! An invisible wave spread from his feet to the entire Edo. Those evil spirits that originally existed in a nearly non-existent form began to slowly solidify at this time. Roar! Ha ha ha! Hee hee! Moo! All kinds of weird calls and creepy laughter came from all directions. In ancient times, the evil spirits that roamed across this land were summoned to the world again. The three-headed Ghost King, the Slippery Ghost, the Dog God, and the Great Tengu appeared behind the God of the Nest, looking at Zhang Yi and others with a playful look. It was like staring at a group of prey at their mouths. The three-headed Ghost Kings were all Epsilon-level strength, and compared with the previous virtual ghost state, their strength seemed to have increased by 1 level. Deng Shintong and others already felt a chill in their backs. Including the opponent's God of the Nest, there are a total of 4 Epsilon-level aliens. Even the feeling that the three-headed Ghost King gave them was not much weaker than Zhang Yi. On the other hand, except for Zhang Yi and Hua, the others had no power to fight against this level of existence. The strength of the enemy made them almost desperate. Not to mention them, even Piercer, Yasin Canero, who was originally planning to watch the battle from a distance, excitedly rushed to the screen of the fighter plane at this time, staring at the sudden appearance of those in Edo. These guys are so terrifying. He couldn't help but think of the moment a year ago when he had just been promoted to the level of Epsilon and came to Edo with Cartiers to face the Shang-Saming Black Shadow and Yumiding. If they really broke out in a conflict at that time, I'm afraid both of them would have died here. And now, there is only one Black Shadow. Canero's eyes began to become complicated. The power behind Edo was beyond his imagination. Today, Zhang Yi and others might really die here. In Edo City, the night parade of 100 demons really appeared. It was no longer the virtual ghosts that could only move forward in the night before, but a substantial body appeared. The sound of ghosts crying came one after another, and the whole Edo Castle became terrifying and dark. Zhang Yi and others were facing a great enemy. But at this moment, Zhang Yi's expression was not fearful, but solemn and calm. Although I have guessed that there will be other things. But it is still a bit of a headache to see it really appear in front of me. In Zhang Yi's right hand, the sword in the tree condensed into a silver-gray sharp sword. He said to Liang Yu and others, "Those low-level ghosts will be left to you. As for the big guys above, Hua, and I will deal with them." Deng Shintong was surprised. "Zhang Yi, do you still want to fight? The other side has 4 Epsilon-level strongmen." He looked at the enemy in the sky, his eyes shaking very badly. In his opinion, now they have no way to deal with the current situation except to try their best to escape. You can't escape. The enemy has blocked the entire Edo. This place is now a huge cage, and I can't use my ability to travel through space to leave. So, I can't take you with me. It's almost impossible to leave here, except to kill them head-on. They won't watch us escape. The space barrier covering the entire Edo has an energy fluctuation that restrains space ability. Zhang Yi can certainly kill his way out and leave Edo. But Liang Yu and others will definitely be killed by these monsters, and Zhang Yi doesn't want to see that ending. But can we win? Deng Shintong's voice trembled a little. The pressure from the 4 epsilons from the sky has made him almost desperate. We will win, Zhang Yi answered without hesitation. He looked up at the sky with an extremely confident look in his eyes. This feeling of confidence even surprised Deng Shintong, Bailey Chongqing, and others. What is the basis for this confidence? Zhang Yi said, I don't have time to explain it to you slowly. Let's fight first. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhang Yi rode on Huahua and headed straight for the sky ahead. Shen Chankashan looked at Zhang Yi flying over, slowly raised the scepter in his hand, and the 12 black magatama on the magic ring slowly rotated. A magatama suddenly turned into a flying star and flew directly towards Zhang Yi. The flying star became huge in an instant, almost covering the entire sky. The rotating magatama was like a black sun pressing down, with a force that almost suffocated people. Zhang Yi's left eye flashed with light and, tracing all things, predicted the opponent's attack trajectory. Of course, he could dodge this move, but once he dodged, Liang Yu and others below would definitely be attacked. Then, I will choose to take your attack head-on. He opened his right hand and pointed forward. All things in the world. His invincible defense ability, 3,000 dimensional gates, changed at this time. After being promoted to the Black Chariot level, his abilities have also been improved in all aspects, especially after the battle with the evil boy. His strength has been sublimated again. The huge dimensional gates, like mirrors suspended in the air, quickly combined to form more than a dozen defensive barriers. The black magatama fell like the sun, hitting his defensive barriers hard. The black power exploded in the air, and the strong shock waves swept across. The storm caused the entire Edo Castle building to collapse. The undead mountain, which had already collapsed even more severely. The fossils of the ancient creatures also began to slowly reveal their bodies. Its posture was also slowly seen clearly. It was not a corpse, but multiple corpses entangled in one place. However, among them, the besieged corpse looked a bit like the legendary dragon. Chapter 1544. True Night Parade of 100 Demons. The Columbia Navy fighter planes outside Edo City were shaken by the blow and immediately flew backwards to avoid the powerful energy impact. However, under this blow, Zhang Yi was not wiped out, and even his dimensional gate was intact. Shen Chankashan looked at this scene in astonishment. How could this happen? Even my attack can't penetrate his defense. Zhang Yi put down his right hand, and a happy smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Sure enough, it's just as I imagined. After several years of fighting, it was not the first time that Zhang Yi came into contact with the mysterious underground civilization. Over the years, he has also been collecting intelligence and studying these mysterious existences. Of course, it is impossible to gain nothing. For example, why do these powerful existences always hide in the underground world instead of appearing on the surface? Even today, Zhang Yi has encountered powerful existences such as the gatekeeper of the underworld and the white dragon sun that suffocated him. But they still stick to their own territory and are very resistant to appearing in the outside world. According to common sense, human power cannot stop them at all. Even after the appearance of an existence of the level of Bailongzi, even the world's top-notch countries such as Huashu country may be destroyed by him. So, Zhang Yi came to a guess in his heart. Those mysterious existences in the underground world are restricted by some kind of power and cannot easily appear in the surface world. These are just guesses. But until Zhang Yi came to Neon, he had already firmly believed in this idea. After all, if these guys could really appear in the surface world at will, they would not watch him kill the evil boy. Second, if they could mobilize a strong enough force, they would not allow the Columbia Navy to continue to occupy Neon's important ports. So, after comprehensive consideration, Zhang Yi came to the conclusion in his heart that the mysterious power in Neon, although strong enough, would not have too terrible strength. Even, it is not as good as the underground demon country on the snowy plateau. Moreover, its appearance will also be restricted by some kind of power. Zhang Yi smiled at the corner of his mouth. He never took risks with his life. And, at this time, he made the right bet. The enemy in front of him, Shenchenkashin, showed a strength of only about 25,000 points at most. Although he was much stronger than him, he was definitely a match for him. So, what I need to do next is to delay time. Then see what kind of events will happen when you mysterious beings appear in the world. 2 to 4. The situation is not very good. But Zhang Yi is not worried about it. The strength of the three Ghost Kings does not pose a threat to him, because his defense is perfect. Only those fragile aliens will have loopholes and give lower-level aliens the opportunity to sneak attack. It seems that you have evolved again in the battle with Tongzi, Shenchenkashin said to Zhang Yi. The language he spoke was Standard Chinese, and it seemed that mastering the language was a very easy thing for him, because before, he used Neon to communicate with the evil boy. You are indeed a talent cultivated by the Dragon Country. However, it is meaningful to kill you in this state. Before I die, I might as well tell you my name. They call me Kamisawasanashin. As soon as Kamisawasanashin's name came out, Zhang Yi immediately received a prompt from the intelligence system. It is recorded in the Kojiki that at the beginning of the birth of the Japanese world, there were three main gods, known as the Three Pillar Gods. Their status and years are higher than Amaterasu, the lord of the Takamajihara Shinti, and their father and mother gods is Anaji and Izanami. These three pillar gods are the main god of Aminomi no Miya, Takamaya Sinashin, and Kamisawasanashin. In the myths and legends of Japan, they are the gods of gods. He waved the scepter in his hand and pointed it in the direction of Zhang Yi. Let's do it. As soon as Kamisawasanashin's voice fell, the three ghost kings behind him immediately dispersed and surrounded Zhang Yi and Hua. The Nura ghost put his sleeves in his hands, sat cross-legged on the head of the huge dog god, and looked at Zhang Yi with a playful and funny smile on his face. De Tengu was the first to attack. His red face was full of anger, and a pair of huge white wings flapped behind him. Then the index finger of his right hand pointed high to the sky. God's power. As soon as the voice fell, a very violent storm rolled up in the sky. A huge vortex appeared in the center of the dark clouds, and then began to spin rapidly. The eye of the tornado appeared, and the dark clouds rolled down, mixed with silver lightning that kept running. In just a moment, a huge hurricane like a mountain formed between heaven and earth. Zhang Yi had seen a tornado on the internet before, but the hurricane in front of him was more terrifying than a tornado. Its size exceeded that of the Immortal Mountain, and its radius reached more than 10 kilometers. The middle area of the hurricane protruded outward. Due to the large amount of dark clouds gathered, the whole body was pitch black, and there were silver arcs of electric light flashing continuously. This attack was enough to destroy a small city. At this time, it was heading straight for Zhang Yi and Hua. Storm? It's useless to me. Zhang Yi raised a sneer at the corner of his mouth. He did not attack, but Hua opened his mouth wide and let out a deafening roar. Roar! Powerful energy condensed in its mouth, and the red power turned into a huge sphere, and then aimed at the rapidly approaching mountain-like hurricane, and with a boom, a thick high-energy particle beam cannon was fired. The red energy penetrated the space in front of him and shot directly into the center of the storm. The collision of the two forces directly destroyed a large number of buildings in Edo City under his feet. Once the largest metropolis in Asia, it was as fragile as a clay model city under the bombardment of two Epsilon-level monsters. High-rise buildings were destroyed one after another, and soon the edge of the city was razed to the ground, revealing the earth underneath. Hee. At this moment, an old laugh was heard. The sly ghost stared at Zhang Yi and Hua, and his ability was also activated. The tumbler fell down. He clapped his hands and said happily. In an instant, the space around Zhang Yi and Hua seemed to be solidified, and their bodies fell into a state of being unable to move. Fortunately, this was not the first time they encountered this ability, so they already had a way to deal with it. As long as the 10,000 things continued to unfold, even if the body could not move, it could form a perfect defense. The dog god opened his mouth and sent out a breath attack similar to Hua. The terrifying energy was completely immersed in the alien space and disappeared out of thin air, without even a ripple. The dog god's ability index was only 13,000. At about 10 o'clock, this level of attack is not even qualified to tickle Zhang Yi. Seeing this, the sly ghost frowned, jumped high in an instant, drew out the famous sword, Oni cut, at his waist and slashed at Zhang Yi's dimensional door. After being slashed by this sword, it will not affect the original nature of things, but will separate everything. If a person is slashed, he will be split in half, but he is still alive. Except that he needs to be taped when walking, he is no different from ordinary people. But if Zhang Yi's space is slashed, it will also be divided, and it will not be able to block external attacks. Chapter 1545, Killing the Ghost. Zhang Yi saw everything that was about to happen. His ability to track everything allowed him to avoid any upcoming risks and find the most appropriate response method based on the enemy's attack methods. God's Domain Purification. Before the sly ghost got close to Zhang Yi, a huge force suddenly appeared in the void and squeezed him into a ball. Aha! The king of the night parade of 100 ghosts, the lord of demons and monsters, actually let out a shrill scream. His originally thin body was severely crushed and turned into a ball-sized meatball. After the scream, he actually retreated back quickly in the air. But this time, he stretched out his twisted body with his crunch, and his whole body was covered with blood. He squatted on the head of the dog god, staring at Zhang Yi with extremely resentful eyes. It seems that after having a physical body, even if the power becomes stronger, it also loses the ability to resurrect infinitely. In other words, Zhang Yi looked at Shenchancho Rishin and said lightly, "Summoning 100 ghosts is also one of your abilities." If the opponent is a summoner, Zhang Yi will be much more at ease at this time. Then, at least it can be said that a considerable part of the opponent's strength is not in the frontal battle. Then start killing. Huahua hummed in a low voice. In the sky, Shenchancho Rishin frowned. He didn't seem to expect Zhang Yi to be so difficult. Then he stretched out his hand, took a black magatama from the staff, and threw it towards Zhang Yi. Another round of black sun pressed down, and this time the target of the attack covered the entire space around the immortal mountain. He expected Zhang Yi to dodge, so he directly adopted a full-range attack method, using Deng Shintong and others below to force Zhang Yi to take his tricks. Unexpectedly, Zhang Yi's dimension gate collided with the black magatama. Like a thunderbolt that shook the earth, black sparks splashed, but in the end, the huge energy was completely absorbed. But the next moment, the dimension gate seemed to collapse and shook unsteadily. A smug smile appeared on the corner of Shenchankyojua Rishin's mouth. "I knew you couldn't keep absorbing attacks without limit," Zhang Yi said. "Unfortunately, you don't know that I can rebound attacks. As long as the power that the dimension gate can absorb without damage, it can be rebounded by changing the vector. When encountering an opponent who is too weak, Zhang Yi usually kills instantly without using it. For opponents who are too strong, this move has no chance to be used. But when he faces an alien whose strength is not much different from his, the horror of this move will be reflected. Full counterattack. The black magatama containing terrifying energy is as terrifying as it is when it comes, and its lethality is equally amazing when it returns. The pupils of the god of the nest of gods shrank suddenly. What? He didn't expect Zhang Yi to be able to rebound his attack, but he didn't have the absolute defense method of Zhang Yi. In desperation, he hurriedly waved the scepter in his hand and aimed it downwards. Several magatama flew out quickly, turning into huge flying stars and colliding with it. The storm swept across, and Edo was even more dilapidated at this time. The god of the nest of gods was hit by the force and flew backwards thousands of meters away. Zhang Yi relied on the dimension gate to absorb all the shock waves and still stood steadily on Huahua's back. "It's just as I thought." Zhang Yi looked down at the ground under his feet. In order to maintain the night parade of 100 demons, you consumed a lot of your energy. So at this time, you really don't pose much of a threat to me. In Edo Castle, the night parade of 100 demons. The revived 100 demons showed even more powerful power and even brought great crisis to Liang Yu and others. However, Zhang Yi ignored it, because he had to spend all his strength to deal with 4 Ypsilons at the same time. As for the companions below, whether they can survive in the battle depends on their own strength. Zhang Yi has done enough for them. People living in this world must first learn to rely on themselves. I seem to have underestimated you. Time and space, 2 of the rarest abilities, are actually gathered in you alone. Interesting. I can probably understand why the Dragon Country would choose you as a training object. Shenchenka Shenri stared at Zhang Yi and said in a deep voice. 3 ghost kings appeared behind him. Before, the 4 of them still maintained the posture of strong men and attacked Zhang Yi one by one. But now, they obviously regarded Zhang Yi as a real enemy and were going to attack without reservation. Zhang Yi frowned. Dragon Country?
What are you talking about?
This was the first time Zhang Yi heard this word. Dragon is a very sacred mythical creature in Huashu Country. It has always appeared in the myths and legends of Huashu Country. But so far, there is no real evidence to prove its existence. The only so-called real object is the golden dragon specimen that Deng Xintong wants to obtain. But Zhang Yi couldn't be sure what it was. Perhaps it was the remains of some kind of lizard, which became what it is now after being wrapped in gold foil. Shenchancha Rishan stared at Zhang Yi with cold eyes.
Huh?
You don't even know about the Dragon Kingdom? Then where does your power come from? My power, of course, comes from myself, Zhang Yi said. Shenchancha Rishan's face suddenly showed an expression of astonishment and a hint of anger. This is impossible. At the beginning of the catastrophe, it is impossible for an alien of your level to be born naturally. He stretched out his fingers, and Zhang Yi noticed that his hands were not like those of humans. His fingers were slender and thin, with gray hair, like the claws of some creature. If there is no interference from angels, I don't believe it. He said more words that Zhang Yi couldn't understand at all. If the 2 were not in a hostile state at this time, Zhang Yi really wanted to have a good exchange with him. What is the Dragon Kingdom? What is an angel? I have never heard of what you said, and although there are not many aliens with my strength in this world, there are some, Zhang Yi explained. Shenchancho Rishan shook his head. No, you don't understand. What I'm talking about is not something superficial.
Boom.
There were bursts of thunder in the sky, as if the god was angry. Shenchancho Rishan looked up at the sky, and then looked at Zhang Yi again. There is no time for nonsense. No matter who you are, or where you come from, I will kill you here today. As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his arms high, and the scepter in his hand jingled. The thunder behind him struck down, breaking through the sky, carrying an awe-inspiring, oppressive force. An even more powerful and terrifying force emerged from the body of Shenchancho Rishan. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows, with a smile on the corner of his mouth. There is a faint thunder and a gloomy sky. I hope that when the wind and rain come, I can keep you here. He looked up at the 4 enemies in front of him and laughed. But I won't stay. Dear viewers, thanks for staying tuned. Today more will come soon. Please see like and subscribe if not already.